Welcome to the Web Platform Podcast, a developer discussion that dives deep into all things web. We discuss topics relevant to developing for the modern web and the web platform of today, tomorrow, and beyond. Welcome to the Web Platform Podcast. I am your host, Eric Isaacson, and I'm joined with panelist Leon Revel.
Hello, how's it going?
Awesome. It's been a long time since I've done that intro, so it's good to be back here on the show.
Great to hear it again, Eric.
Today, we're going to be talking about SEO and JavaScript. So JavaScript and SEO. This is episode number 168, JavaScript and SEO. And before we do that, leave it off to Leon for what's new in the web in 2 minutes or less.
So first of all, Microsoft Edge now supports the Web Authentication Specification, which will allow users to sign in using their face, finger, PIN, and portable key devices. There's a new intent to implement and ship WebXR Device API in Firefox Nightly, which is the successor to WebVR 1.1. The WebXR Device API follows modern web API patterns, is extensible for augmented reality, enables use within web workers, and solves many security problems. There's a new Stencil.js release, 0.11.0, which includes some new features, refactors, and bug fixes. The Reporting Observer is a new observer shipping in Chrome and under consideration for other browsers, which allows developers to observe when their site uses a deprecated API or runs into browser intervention. The Object.fromEntries proposal, which proposes a new static method on object, which will allow developers to transform a list of key value pairs into an object, has been moved from stage 2 to stage 3. And finally, just a reminder about the Web Platform Podcast newsletter, where every week you'll get a friendly email with the latest episode and all of the news and links we mention in This Week in Web. And that's everything from me for This Week in Web.
That was fantastic, Leon. Thank you so much for that. So now that we have that out of the way, we can talk about JavaScript and SEO. Our guest today is, I'm going to totally butcher your name, but it's Tomasz.
Yes, I'm Tomasz Rudzki. Right.
Excellent. I wasn't too bad, right?
It was fine.
Awesome. And you are a SEO JavaScript expert, I assume?
Yeah, I hope so. I work as a research and development specialist at LF8. We specialize at technical SEO, including JavaScript SEO. So if you call me a JavaScript expert, I'm very happy to hear that.
Awesome. We read your article online recently with your company, and thought it'd be interesting to start talking about some SEO, search engine optimization, for those who are not aware. Can we start off with kind of what is SEO and why developers should really care about this?
Okay, so SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. The aim of SEO is to increase the visibility of businesses in Google. So I think our job is very important. If you are on the top of Google results, you can attract a lot of clients. If you are on the second page of Google, it's still better than the third, but you get nothing from that. You should be on the top of Google results to gain recognition and gain your clients. So that's our job.
Yeah, I think this covers everything, public facing, right? So if you have something that maybe is like an internal application or some type of application that's not going to be for the public, you don't want people to find it in search, then maybe this isn't as important. But for most of us who are working with stuff that needs to be found and discovered, this is a pretty important topic.
Exactly.
So you mentioned search engine optimization gets you high in the rankings, so people get visibility, they get to see you quicker, and so a lot of people kind of scoff at the JavaScript piece of this, and what does it mean to have JavaScript as part of your SEO? Because it's not very traditional in that sense.
Yeah, why is it significant nowadays? Why is it kind of a big piece of the puzzle for developers nowadays trying to build, applications and have them, SEO optimized?
Okay, and I can see the general trend that more and more websites use JavaScript. There is emerging trend of using frameworks and libraries like React, Angular, or Vue.js. And we can't just push the magic button in the Wayback Machine to go back to 90s to the plain HTML area. Yeah, now everybody is moving to JavaScript, and now there are a lot of websites that use JavaScript, and it's a real challenge for both of us, for you as developers and for me as an SEO, to make it work for Google and other search engines. For many years, search engines were not able to render JavaScript. So if you just publish your JavaScript website, search engines didn't have any possibility to see it. Now it's getting better and better, but yeah, search engines still struggle with JavaScript SEO, and it's sometimes really difficult to make it works. Yes.
It'd be quite interesting to know, what like the Googlebot is capable of rendering in terms of JavaScript, and also how that compares to other search engines such as Bing or Yahoo.
Okay. Can I start with Google?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so I can see that Google is getting better and better with rendering JavaScript. But of course, it's not perfect. First of all, Google uses old browser for rendering. It's Chrome 41, and it's a 3-year-old browser. So it doesn't support many modern features. If you Chrome 41 supports ES6 only partially. Service workers are disabled. So if you are building a website, you should make sure it works for Chrome 41 because it doesn't support many modern features. So you should ensure that you use either graceful degradation or polyfills. Sorry.
Yes, correct.
Graceful degradation, or you use
Progressive enhancement.
Yeah, forgot about that. Progressive enhancement, or you use pre-rendering or isomorphic JS, also called universal JS. Another thing to watch out is timeouts. I mean, Google has strict timeouts. If it takes too long to render your website, Google might just skip rendering and index the content as it is. So if Google encounters timeout, it can stop rendering and
that could impact your scores for ranking and indexing poorly in that case.
Exactly, and also it takes more time to index JavaScript website than the HTML one, because there are two phases of Google indexing. The first is done immediately. Then the second, you have to wait till the resources are available in Google. And also there is one strange thing, but I think it's necessary from Google perspective. I'm speaking about Google that tries to detect if a resource is necessary from a rendering point of view And if that text it's not, Google might not request such a resource. So if an algorithm is mistaken, you are lost. So yeah, but I think the most important issue here, that is also the easiest to detect, is compatibility with Chrome 41. So when creating a JavaScript website, you should ensure it works in 41. If it works in 41, then you can go deeper, checking if Google can render, can index your content. If not, you can think of implementing solutions like pre-rendering or isomorphic JS. We can talk about it later.
So if a developer obviously tests their site using Chrome 41 to make sure that it generally works, but that's not exactly the same as the Googlebot, correct? It's slightly different in how they obviously render it. So is that correct?
I was talking about differences that, when you open your website in Chrome 41, you can wait. If you are patient, you can wait like half a minute to render a page. Googlebot is not patient. And also, Googlebot or Google doesn't act like a real user. So if you have some content hidden under tabs and you get the content via Ajax call after a user clicks on the button, Googlebot will not see it because it doesn't perform on click event. So if you have some important content downloaded from server only if somebody clicks on a button, Googlebot will not see it. And there are very little differences between Chrome 41 and web rendering service used by Google. I was checking it via Modernizer and published the results of my investigation in my article. If you type in Google Chrome 41, I think it will be on the first or second place. So you click on LF8 results. Wait, I will do it right now. Chrome 41. I type Chrome 41 in Google, and
we can also make sure that we put the link in the show notes as well, so everybody can find it easily enough.
Yeah, and here you can see my article, Chrome 41, the key to successful website rendering. And then here you can find some comparison table. I was comparing Chrome 41 I installed on my computer with web rendering service and with the most recent Chrome browser. So there are not too many differences. Another difference I can think of is Google follows robots.txt rules. So if it's just a plain txt file that in which you declare what resources Googlebot can and other search engines can access. If you decide that Googlebot cannot request, let's say, your products by mistake, Googlebot will not see it. If you open it, your website in Chrome 41, for sure it will work. So that's the difference. But technically, if we are speaking of Googlebot possibility to render, if we are speaking about difference between web rendering service at Chrome 41, there are not too many differences. Also, I can think that if something requires user action, like notification API or something like that, Googlebot just skip it. So I think
this is great.
I think all the differences you can find in Chrome 40 in my article, I already mentioned before. I really recommend you reading it.
Now, are they planning to Google? I'm talking about right now. Are they planning to update that to a couple versions below what's current soon?
68.
Yeah, are they looking into even getting Chrome 42? You know, like are they looking to change that as far as like how Googlebot works?
Yeah, I really hope that Googlebot update their browser. It will help a lot of websites to let it be indexed in Google.
Excellent. You did mention earlier too that you can't like you can't trust that if you can't wait like 30 some seconds for a website, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then it just won't index well, like we mentioned earlier. But if you, I mean, recently that they had Google had changed their indexing from desktop first to mobile first for index, and now the mobile will be ultimately the only one, or it is already as of June, I believe, the only indexing they're using. So if you're not fast on mobile, which is slower than desktop, so what impact does speed, like mobile speed, now that the mobile index is the only index being used by Google? How much importance should be placed on speed for your website?
Okay, so speed is very important for SEO efforts. First of all, it's an official ranking factor both for mobile and desktop. It's not the most important ones. If you have a website that loads in 1 second, and if your competitor website loads in 1.5 seconds, it will not be like that you are on the first page and your competitor is out. So it's a ranking factor, but not the most important one. Also, if you have a JavaScript website, you should ensure that all the requests necessary from a rendering point of view, like getting products for API, are very fast to make sure that Googlebot will not skip it. And also, Googlebot or Google detects if a big number of requests from Google make your website slower. If they detect it, they want to be a good citizen. So they just wait a moment and try again in 5 minutes or later, or just use less requests. So if you have a really big website, like more than 500,000, it really might harm having a slow website can make a lot of harm for your website when it's really slow.
So if speed is not the main or one of the biggest factors for this, what are the top top one even factor that we should be concerned with when we're developing?
Oh, it's a really difficult question, because Google is like a black box. So the ranking factors are not official. Of course, you have to have a great content, etc., etc. When you ask me how to make sure that all your efforts as a developers make your website visible in Google, I think I can answer that. First of all, make sure it works in Chrome 41 because Google uses it for rendering. Second, make sure, and it's especially important in mobile websites. Make sure that Google can access your content hidden under tabs. Make sure Google can access your menu links. Google can access the second and beyond pages of your pagination. I was doing some research, and I wanted to know if some popular websites are ready for mobile-first indexing. I was checking AliExpress, Gearbest, IKEA, and it turned out that they're not ready because when I was doing this research, I saw that they don't let Googlebot to see the second page of the pagination. So Googlebot, imagine AliExpress or Gearbest mobile phone category, 2,000 of products, and Googlebot can see just 20 of them. So I created an article about that for LF8, and I showed exactly why these websites, AliExpress, Gearbest, IKEA, are not ready for mobile-first indexing. And here I give some tips. How can you make sure your website work for mobile-first indexing? So I really encourage you to read this article again. First, I was talking about my article about Chrome 41, now about my mobile-first indexing, but
we like shameless plugs. It's okay.
I really recommend reading it.
I think I may have read. I didn't read the Chrome 41 one. I think I may have read that one though, which is definitely a great article if I remember correctly. With some of this though, like we've noticed where I'm at, that content also is really core to this, so that you need to have the same content on mobile as you do on desktop for rendering, or you get sort of dinged for that.
Yeah,
have you found that to be the case, like with a lot of your websites?
Exactly. So in mobile first indexing that it's rolling out, Google will just index your mobile version. So if you have a desktop version full of content, etc., and your mobile version is a crap, after switching to mobile first indexing, you may lose your ranking. In the same article I was mentioned before, I wrote live.com. I wrote about the live.com case. They have a lot of content on the desktop website, desktop version, but in the mobile one, there is only the login button and sign up plus logo, of course, but nothing more. So if Google enables mobile first indexing for live.com, they will suffer. So yeah, it's not like that I'm talking, okay, this website is not ready, this one also, etc. But I want to show people that also the biggest companies make mistakes. So if you work on a JavaScript website, if you create a mobile version, make sure that you don't do such a mistake. So that was my aim, not to show that, okay, this website is a crap. This also, I wanted to show that even big companies makes mistake, and you should ensure that you don't. So
yeah, I think that's always a better approach, is to look at it as a, something that's challenging, and okay, this is a problem that we need to solve. Let's be positive about it, and not like, hey, you messed up. Look at what this site did. That's kind of like doesn't help anybody. I think it's really important to kind of look at it like, yeah, exactly, like you're talking about.
Learn from other people's mistakes, etc., and see how you can apply what you learn from that to your own developments and stuff. I'd like to ask about server-side rendering, if I can, and how and to what extent does that help SEO in terms of JavaScript sites, etc.
Okay, and if you notice that your website, your client-side rendered website, struggle with Google rendering or rankings, you may think of some sort of pre-rendering, some sort of server-side rendering. The first idea you can think of is to do pre-rendering. In such a case, you detect Googlebot by user agent and serve it a pre-rendered content. Starting from March, it's officially approved solution by Google. John Mueller confirmed it on JavaScript SEO forum. Then he was talking
about. He works for Google.
Yeah, he works for Google.
Excellent.
Then he confirmed it during the Google I/O conference. Even their YouTube website use pre-rendering. So they detect Googlebot by user agent and serve it a pre-rendered content. So it's legal. Another solution you can implement on your website is isomorphic JS, also called universal JavaScript. You can use, if you are using React, you may know that there is a special library for that. It's called Next.js. If you are working with Angular, you probably have known that there is Angular Universal. For Vue.js, there is a library called Nuxt.js. And you may ask, what's the difference between pre-rendering and universal JS? So as I mentioned before, when you are doing pre-rendering, you detect Googlebot by user agent and serve it pre-rendered content. So users and Googlebot get two different versions, and sometimes it's difficult to spot any issues, because when you are watching us on a website as a user, it may be different version than the version that Googlebot gets, because sometimes a pre-rendering service can fail. So you can look at a pre-rendered version of your website, and there is only menu with your logo with no real content, because software failed. Software you use for pre-rendering, it happens. And pre-rendering, I think it costs a lot of resources, because you have to refresh the snapshots, crawl the website again to make the snapshots. And another solution is universal JavaScript. Here, both users and search engines get at the initial load page full of content. When you go to the source page, you can see a lot of HTML markups, and the content is here. Then the framework or library is loaded on the top of that. So thanks to it, both users and search engines can benefit, because users get the initial load faster. They don't need to wait till a framework or library will be loaded, and the search engines get the content that doesn't need to be rendered.
And it's gotten a lot easier with those frameworks that you mentioned. So most of the major frameworks nowadays come with the associated solution kind of already available as best practices for that particular framework. So that makes things for us developers a lot easier than what it used to be, for sure.
Yes, but it's not. You can do pre-rendering for every website, because you just use a headless browser like Chrome Headless, and you take a snapshot. And
I was specifically just talking about the universal JavaScript side of things.
Yeah, but universal, you can't do isomorphic JS, or you call it universal, for every website. Because
no, of course not. No.
For instance, Angular JS, the first version of Angular, doesn't provide any module for that. So yeah, it really depends what solution is best.
Yeah, I think with the server-side rendering, SSR, universal, isomorphic, whatever you want to call it, to like the there are problems with maintenance, a lot of overhead with that as well. Both solutions are viable to get content on the page quicker, so that Google can look at all these things and decide if it's going to index them or not, or add to your rank. At least that's been my experience with this. Like we have this need, because we have this JavaScript ecosystem we have to work within, and now we have to get these things indexed, and so we're sort of locked into using JavaScript to help us index things with Google because of the way our applications render. So on the client side only, like no pre-rendering, no server-side rendering, is there a disadvantage if you have to fetch content?
The first thing you should ensure is Google can render your content by Chrome 41 or Google Fetch and Render, right? So I assume that Google can do it. Then you have to think of rankings. And ranking JavaScript website is a client-side rendered website. It's a little bit complicated topic, because I think that there is no enough data. Okay, the SEO branch is not sure if all things being equal, JavaScript client-side rendered website can rank as high as HTML1. There are no enough data, because everybody use pre-rendering or another sort of server-side rendering, and my boss Bartosz Guralewicz was trying to many times to asking on Twitter for websites that are client-side rendered and rank high, and sometimes he get he got some link to a website, but when we was looking into that, it turned out that they implement some sort of server-side rendering, or they rank high, not because of JavaScript, but despite of JavaScript, that they do a lot of mistakes, and even with that, they rank high because of a big number of links, etc., etc. So sometimes we are not sure how high they would rank if they had no such JavaScript issues. So it's a really difficult question. I wish I would go straight away with client-side rendered website, hoping it will rank high. But it's not always the case. I don't think there is a single person in developer world or SEO world that can tell you, okay, this JavaScript website will rank high. We were doing some.
It usually is. It depends, right?
Yeah, we were
The
doing
answer all the time.
yeah, and
That's the answer to everything with development, right? It's always
It is.
depends.
yeah, and it really depends. But when we were creating some JavaScript experiments, and the first version it was plain HTML, and the second version it was JavaScript, and it was really interesting for me that in the case of JavaScript website, Googlebot didn't follow links, didn't visit links injected by JavaScript. We repeated the experiment on 5 different domains, and everything was the same. And the explanation was relatively easy because Google treated these domains as test 1, experiment 1. So that's why. But both of websites, I mean the HTML one and JavaScript one, was created for just the sake of experiment. There were no difference between them. So the question is, can client-side rendered website can rank high? Is still open for me.
Right. Okay, I can see that. So one thing, if you've worked with larger teams and you've done like marketing and worked with SEO type analysts, sometimes analysts will tell you after they look through their tooling, they'll say something to the degree of, hey, when you test the page, turn off JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
So in the age of, like I said, this ecosystem of JavaScript, React, Angular, is it fair to say that? And why are our analysts so concerned with this?
Okay, I can see it's frustrating for developers. Okay, so when you want to get to know what parts of a page or website are created by JavaScript, it's good to switch JavaScript off, because you switch JavaScript and you quickly can see if it's rendered by JavaScript or not. So it's very helpful. But if you have a single page application, there is no content in the initial HTML response, what's the point in switching JavaScript off? Because you switch JavaScript off and you
That's what I'm saying.
and you can see nothing. And also when you implement some sort of pre-rendering and you detect Googlebot by user agent, and if you open a website as a real user and switch JS off, there is not the version that Googlebot gets. So what's point in that? But I can, from another perspective, I can understand it. I already mentioned to you that for me, if a client-side rendered website can rank high in Google, that question is open for me. So this SEO specialist that want you to switch JavaScript off while testing, they may think of implementing some sort of server-side rendering. That may be fine. So it really depends how you look at the problem.
Yeah. It depends.
It depends, as always. Yeah.
We'll try and answer the next question without it depends. So we are.
Let's try.
Unfortunately, we are running up against time now, and I'd just like to try and summarize all the stuff we've kind of talked about. So, could you give us the top 3 things that a developer should consider in terms of SEO, of course, when building a website or an app? So, what are the 3 most important things that a developer should think about in terms of SEO when they're building something?
Okay, so the first rule is don't deploy on Fridays.
And if you do it at 5:30.
Yes. Yeah, really. And okay, let's go straight to the business. Make sure it renders correctly in Chrome 41. I was mentioning it all the time. When you test your website in many browsers, like in the most recent version of Chrome, in Opera, probably Edge, Firefox, I think you should also test it using Chrome 41. That's must have for every JavaScript website. And also, you should make sure that Google can see content hidden under tabs, that Google can see your menu, pagination links. As I mentioned before, in my article about mobile first indexing, I showed that not every website are ready for that. And I think you should, while creating a JavaScript website, you should cooperate with SEO specialist. It shouldn't be like that you create a website from the ground, don't consult it with SEO specialist, then you talk to your boss or SEO specialist and say, "Tada, that's the website." And SEO looks at that. I think there are a lot of problems to solve. Let's start from the very beginning. Yeah, I think that's easy to avoid if you cooperate with SEO specialist to make sure it will work in Google.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to us today. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. So is there anything else that you'd like to leave the listeners with before we close out this episode?
As you know, I create a lot of articles, etc. Now I created the next one. I'm not sure if it will be article or separate website. And it will be about step-by-step debugging your JavaScript SEO problems. So
that sounds pretty interesting.
Maybe step-by-step plus frequently asked questions. And there are some questions from your podcast here. And I'm not sure when it will be ready. When it's ready, I can send it to you, and you can see if it answers your questions or not.
Sure thing. Yeah, please let us know and we'll get that shared out. So this has been episode 168 of the Web Platform Podcast, where we've been talking about JavaScript and SEO. So thank you all for listening and have a wonderful rest of your week.